thank you very much for meeting with me today, Assemblyman Hammond. Please tell us your name, a little bit about your family of origin, where you grew up, all that stuff.
Okay, my name is Scott Hammond. I was born actually in New York, in a little north of Syracuse. Actually, I was born in Syracuse, but raised in Chittenango. And having been a military brat, my father and my stepfather were both in the military. My father being in the Navy, and my stepfather in the Army. We traveled around a lot. Actually, it kind of exposed me to a lot of different cultures and a lot of different things. We lived in Italy briefly, although I was supposedly too young to remember. I still remember we had this nanny that took care of us, came in and fed us, and what could she cook? I just remember being a 2-year-old that was always very happy with my food. But we traveled all over the place. But we ended up living in Alaska, and I stayed there for much of my young years. And went to the University of Alaska Fairbanks for a couple of years before I went on a mission. Came back from Portugal after my 2-year mission, and stayed in Alaska all of about 2 or 3 months. Decided I needed to get married. Alaska's a beautiful place, love it, but for every 10 men there's a woman, and there wasn't any place to go looking for somebody to settle down with, so I moved down to the lower 48s, as we say, from up there, and started dating, and eventually went back to school and got married. I'm a father of 4 children. We just adopted our last child 2.5 months ago. We finalized it about 3 weeks ago, and so that's probably 2 more children we thought we were going to have. My wife and I started out early in life. We thought we were going to have lots of kids, and then when they didn't come, we just kind of thought, all right, we'll wait and see what happens. And I told her when we got married, I said, I'm not going to be opposed to adoption. I love the idea of adoption. I'd love to try it. And so when things weren't working out, we just went ahead and adopted our son. 5 years later on, we adopted another young baby daughter. And then, we thought we were done. Lo and behold, my wife and I were able to reproduce. Don't know how that happened, but, the third one came along. We're like outnumbered, and we felt like that was it. And then just recently, we had a friend who called and said that her daughter was pregnant, and they'd been talking quite a bit, her and her daughter, and decided that they were going to call us up and ask us if we'd adopt. And so that's how that last one came about. So we actually ended up with 4 kids overall. I'm a teacher. Recently served my first session in the legislature, and my passion though in life is really coaching. I love to coach basketball. I've coached softball. I've done soccer before. Basketball is the sport that I really have a heart for, though.
So your adoption is an open adoption. Is her biological mother involved in any way?
Not really. Actually, the first adoption, we've met the biological mother in all 3 cases. We have met the biological father, in 2 out of 3 cases. The only one, there's the first one, there's only one where the biological mother just ceased speaking with us. It was one of those, adoption is a very strange thing because it's not the same every single time. And so in the case of the first adoption we had, we wrote the birth mother a couple of times. She wrote us, after the first time, she wrote us back. Second time we sent a letter, then she was done. She wanted to move on with her life, and you have to respect that. It was a semi-open adoption. And in the other ones, we've been very fortunate to have had a really great experience in the other 2 adoptions. We're still in communication with both the birth mother, birth fathers, and there's an understanding. We feel like there's an understanding, and it really has held true with our second adoption, where we let them know about what's going on in her life, but they've moved on as well. One of them has been married. One of the biological parents is now married, has kids. And so we're just letting them know what's going on with their daughter, their biological daughter, but pretty much they knew from the beginning that it wasn't really their daughter, that she was meant to be in our home. It just happened to occur a different way than the normal circumstance. And so they give us that freedom. They like to know about what's going on because they feel that connection, but at the same time they know that we're the parents. So it's worked out really well.
What religion were you raised in?
Uh, my family, a lot of times we go to Baptist church. Sometimes we would Assembly of God, which again, it's a Christian church, so that's the religion I was raised in. I don't know if you can say that we went to church all the time, or that we profess to practice the religion every day. But that if you were to force me to assign something and say what religion were you, then that's probably what would be on that dotted line. But certainly I didn't practice every day.
And what religion do you practice now?
I'm LDS, Mormon, as a lot of the regular folks like to call us.
What does LDS stand for?
It's officially the name of the church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So LDS stands for Latter-day Saints.
Great. And how did you come to that church?
I was 19, and I'd always, the back of my mind, I always thought that, to be quite honest with you, one of the components of the church that I really loved before I knew about it was the way that they treated the kids. The youth of the church is just tremendous, and you see this in our church, that the youth participate. They love that, and not just the teenagers. I'm talking about the youth going all the way down. That they include the youth and the babies and the kids and their meetings. They're there. They're prevalent. They're a big part of who we are. You go to some of the big conferences, the general conference that we have twice a year, and you'll hear kids in the audience, and the prophets of the church will say, "That's all right. That's just us. It's okay to hear the noise, because that's just the little spirits letting us know that they're there." And that's always touched me. I thought it was a major part. But the other thing that when I was a kid, I always think to myself, if this Heavenly Father, this God that exists, if He loved His kids so much, why didn't He share the news over here in the New World? Why is it that we're just now sharing it with some of the people who've lived here, the indigenous population? And so when I started hearing the lessons, or when the missionaries started to talk to me, they introduced me to the prophet Joseph Smith, and the fact that in the Book of Mormon, which was translated from records of people who lived here, and explained that that Christ had visited here before He left this earth. That really touched me. It's like I knew down deep that had to have been, because I'd always thought about it. And so when they explained that to me, it just was a natural fit, and I just felt it, and I just knew that it had to be the truth. So that's what attracted me to it. I've been LDS since, like I said, I was 19. Back in 1986, which right there, that dates me. I'm older than I look, I guess, but people always are astounded when they look at me. But yeah, I'm older than I look, and so I've been LDS since 1986.
Where did you go to college?
Actually, I've been to 3 different universities, and it's very typical of most people. So don't be surprised if you find yourself moving around nowadays. I started out at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I was in Nanook. I spent 2 years there, loved it. Alaska's a great place. I really love that small campus. Matter of fact, we went back up there this past summer, because that's where our daughter was born, in Fairbanks, which is a tremendous thrill for me. It's like the connection back to my roots, to Alaska, and to that life that I had back there. But we went back up to Fairbanks to pick her up, and of course I had to go back to the campus. I just love that campus. I love walking around, the smells of the place. It's just a very unique setting. It's just so many trees on this campus. The smells, it's like you're in the wilderness, but you're not. And I love that about the UAF. And then after my mission, I came back up, and like I said, I went down to Lower 48 to make sure that I had somebody to date. And I ended up getting into the University of Utah. In Salt Lake City. Loved that place, really enjoyed it a lot. The thing that propelled me to leave that university and enter one more university was my wife. My wife and I were talking, and she had a job opportunity at the Thomas & Mack Center here in Las Vegas. And so she came to me, and the conversation started out with this. Do you remember, Scott, when you always told me that you were flexible and that you could get along with anybody and you can go anywhere and it'd be fine? And I said, yeah, I've traveled so much in my life that it's second nature. Wherever I go, try to find a niche that fits me and just kind of meet people. That's one of the things I like to do. And she said, well, do you mind if we test that out? I think I may have a job opportunity down at the Thomas and Mack Center at UNLV, and I'd like to go down there. I'd like to move down there. So even though I really enjoyed my time at the University of Utah, I loved the professors, I started getting into my degree, which was political science. We packed everything up, moved here, and that was in December of 1993, and we just settled in here. We just really like it. We spent several years at the Thomas and Mack Center. I worked there for a little bit, but then I worked also at UNLV as a teaching assistant in the political science department. And the rest is history. So I went there. The only other university I attended, I went to, again, and I know we were talking off camera here for a little bit, where I learned my Spanish. My wife and I came home one day. It was the summer session. I came home and I told my wife, I saw this sign on campus where they were looking for people to go to study abroad. And I said, I just got this impression that I need to go and do that. I mean, one of my goals was always to work for the State Department. I wanted to work in different embassies because I really love to travel. I loved, like I said, to communicate with people, learn about cultures, all that stuff. It's very appealing to me. I mean, it's just the ultimate. But I needed to learn Spanish. I just felt like I needed to diversify. I knew Portuguese, but let's learn Spanish and then just keep learning languages. And so I told my wife, I just had this impression I needed to know that. And we discussed it, thought about it, prayed about it, things like that. And she came back, she said, you know what, I think you're right, I think you need to go. Which shocked me, because I told her I was going to be gone from the house for like 4 months. It's not like you just all of a sudden decide to, go camping for the weekend. And she's like, okay, it was 4 months away from the home. But I decided to go ahead and follow through with that. We filled all the paperwork out. So my very last semester at the university, I spent studying in Chile in a study abroad program at the Universidad de Educares, which is a private university on the outskirts of Santiago. And then I came back from that, walked, got my degree, and then started my master's program the following fall. So I guess I say it's 3 universities, but you can actually count 4 if you count the Universidad de Educares. So
you went there for a semester. I kind of got to count it.
Yeah. So it's 4 universities, and it's funny because when I was a kid, a lot of people always said that. I think back in the 70s, it was just understood that you only kind of went to one university. Most people went to a university, graduated, and done. And then in the 80s, people were saying, it's kind of changing a little bit. You end up going to 1 or 2. It's a pain to transfer your credits, which it is. Believe me, if you're listening to me, you don't want to transfer too often because it's a pain in the butt to transfer those credits. Universities have a hard time figuring out what credits will transfer, which don't. So I thought I wouldn't do that. And then lo and behold, by the time I'm all done with my education, it's 4 universities later, and not too much of a pain with the credits. They're pretty good there.
How did you decide on teaching?
Well, when I was a kid in high school, I just said that's what I'm going to do. I just really enjoyed the classroom, but I enjoyed my teachers, and I kind of got away from that. There was other interests that came when I started traveling. That really spoke to me, and so I wanted to pursue that. To be honest with you, and I know it's going to sound cliche, it was my wife who kind of said, I think you're really good at a couple things. Really good. I mean, obviously, if a woman is going to marry you, she thinks a lot about you and thinks you're really good. But in this case, she just said you have really 2 major gifts you really need to develop. And she said one of them is teaching. I really like to see you teach. And this is probably, about a year before I finished up my degree. And she said, you're just a natural teacher. And so she kept that seed planted in my mind. And when other things just weren't working out, and I thought, maybe she's right, because I really do enjoy it. So then I pursued it after I got my degree, my master's degree. I had to go back for about a year and a half to get my teaching license. And so got into the classroom. I didn't have a great experience, to be honest with you, when I was student teaching. I had a very difficult student teaching assignment, one semester in another school.
What was so hard about it?
It was not as easy as, people think. You go into a classroom. For one of the classrooms, I was given two different teachers as master teachers. I guess they're trying to mold me into their image. One of them was on the way out of teaching. In the last couple of years that he was a teacher, he also was a, for lack of a better term, glorified custodian. The school kind of entrusted him with the keys of the school, and so a lot of times during the day he was doing that job. And so when I was in his classroom, instead of sort of mentoring me for the first 2 or 3 weeks as they try to get them to do, they're teaching, you're watching, and then you kind of slide into the role. He just, baptism by fire, threw me into the classroom, and I think that normally would have been okay. A lot of teachers, they handle that. The classroom that